Hey everybody, it's Friendo, and this video is for Unworshipediety. I know it's been about a month since Cult of Dusty and the race explosion, but we had a conversation. He called me up on Skype when that was still going on. So when you saw the video, there was, it was offensive. It hurt your feelings, and you told me that you were not entirely sure why, or rather you wanted an outside opinion, some kind of objective perspective why on why that would be offensive, what would be wrong with that. And on the one hand, there is something there, what he was pointing out. There is an irony that the you have a group of people who they enslave a nation, and the slaves adopt their religion, they adopt their culture. And that was one of the primary arguments that slaveholders used for why slavery was a good thing, was that it passed along a superior culture and a truly redemptive religion to a savage people. But there's more to the story. And the real problem, I think, with what Dusty did in his video was he started off, he addressed black people directly to tell them, I'm going to tell you what it means to be black. I am going to define for you your history, your culture, and what your belief position should be. And I think that's really where it starts out. That's the problem that people had, why it was offensive, why it got so much ridicule, why it got so much criticism. You're beginning from the assumption of someone who's outside of this community, who does not understand it, looking at people in that community and people who've come out of that community and telling them, I am going to tell you what it means to be black, to be a part of your community. And that's quite arrogant. That's quite offensive. He doesn't understand the way you understand what it means to be black. And anybody watching, keep in mind, Unworshipediety is an atheist. But being a black atheist does put you one step into the same community as black Christians. There's still a commonality. And see, me, for example, I come from a Christian background. I was raised Catholic. And there's a certain kind of criticism that evangelicals like to make of Catholics that I find offensive, that they're idolaters, that the church is satanic, that Catholics are going to hell because they worship false gods. I find that offensive, even though I'm not Catholic. I have friends in the Catholic Church. I have family in the Catholic Church. So simply because I'm an atheist and I don't believe in Catholicism doesn't mean that I will sit back and gleefully tolerate and participate in absolutely anything that people say about Catholics. These are still, to whatever extent, my people. So when you have someone getting up that high of a horse to talk down without any respect to black Christians as if they are children, as if they are totally unaware of their own history and their own culture, then yeah, it's something you can legitimately be pissed off about. And so while there is something there is this strange fascination with Christianity that is the religion of the slaveholder. Dusty just doesn't want to engage in any discussion as to why that might be. He just jumps to conclusions, information that he has not vetted from people in black community, practicing black Christians, former black Christians, black Muslims, right? Those who may want to be religious may see comfort in religion and see that black Americans need some exterior social force to bind them all together, but that Christianity, the religion that enslaved them, is not going to do that for them. Now, there's a discussion to be had there, but Dusty isn't interested in that discussion. He doesn't want to know why it is, truly, that people in these communities choose this religion. He just wants to take cheap shots for ideological and entertainment purposes. Okay. Now, the source that I've been telling people to look into is the biography of Frederick Douglass. He was a slave. He was an abolitionist and a proponent of civil rights for women and for African Americans. Now, his tale is really compelling. And he does talk about the relationship between slavery and abuse. He calls it the religion of the South, saying that there's nothing more vile, no system that causes people to look at their brothers, to look at others with such contempt as the religion of the South. And he does see a direct connection there, that when you tell someone they have a God-given sovereignty over others, that it is not only their power, but their responsibility to be slave masters, then they will revel in whatever abuse they have the ability to heap on others. And as Skeptical Heretic pointed out, the institution of slavery utterly destroyed the concept not only of nation, but also of family. You had slave masters who they specialized in, they delighted in splitting up families. You could have a family, a man and a woman, raise their children, and then when the children are old enough, sell all of them off to different plantations. There was real cruelty, real calculated cruelty behind the way many of these owners operated. They specifically and intentionally wanted to destroy all human bonds that would allow their slaves to look at themselves as people, not just part of an industrial machine. But he also goes on to talk about the subversive nature of reading the Bible, about the hope that it gave him. See, there's a part near the end of the video where Dusty said, and the Africans, when they were given this book of fairy tales, they must have immediately not believed it. They must have immediately been skeptical, and that just seems to me that he hasn't read accounts of what life was like for Africans newly brought over. The fear that they had, the bewilderment that they had, the real ordeal that they had endured. They had to relearn everything that they knew about the world. They were ready to believe anything. But when you hand the Bible to slaves, the first thing that they do, the first thing that appeals to them is not the chapters and verses that Dusty read out, but the story of the Israelites escaping bondage, the captivities, the slaveries, and the release. That's the narrative that they picked up. That's what gave them hope. It's absolutely unconscionable that someone would come out saying that they're going to educate people about the ordeal of slaves and the lives of slaves without understanding the real human solace and comfort that they gained from reading the Bible. Now, others like Rob have gone on to talk about the role of religion in the abolitionist movement. But I really wanted to focus on the experiences that people like Frederick Douglass pointed out, that when they read the Bible, it was a subversive activity, something that the slave owners would not have approved of if they had understood it, if they had understood the narrative of freedom, the message that you need to endure, you need to keep faith through your trials and adversities, and then you will be rewarded by your Creator. That is the message that they took from it, that they passed around to each other. And it's the message that is still there in the black community today. They understand the problems that they face. They understand how society sells them short. They are still engaged in this narrative of endure and prosper and hold faith so that you will receive better rewards later on. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe it's a bad idea. But that is the idea. That's what I see. And Dusty doesn't. What his followers can't. And yes, Unworshipediety, I think you have every right to find that lack of vision, that lack of understanding offensive.